In ancient China, where ambition met cruelty at the crossroads of destiny, the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, rose to power like a dragon unfolding its wings, vast, shadowed and fearsome. Under his rule, knowledge flickered and faded. Libraries turned to ash beneath an iron sky as centuries of wisdom vanished in cascading flames. Whispered secrets echoed across fields, where scholars perished in silence, their legacy interred with them. The Great Wall climbed across the land, its stones cemented with sweat and the sacrifice of countless souls. Driven by an unyielding dread of death, Qin's decrees reverberated through homes, sharp, immediate, and ever watchful. Step into the shadowed corridors of history, where a world of myths and emperors converge. The year is 221 BCE, a time when discord reigned as China's warring states clashed endlessly. Yet, beneath the chaotic surface, a young king carved his way through the tumult, his ambition as relentless as the approach of dawn. His name was Qin Shi Huang, no ordinary ruler, but a visionary whose actions were as admired as they were feared. His ascent from King Zheng of Qin to the first emperor of a unified China was a tale woven with intrigue and determination. This is not just history, it's an invitation to chart the course of destiny, where dragons were imagined and emperors bent reality to their will. Before Qin Shi Huang's rise, China was a patchwork of kingdoms locked in perpetual conflict. Born in 259 BCE, Zheng was thrust into this churning sea of warfare at birth. He became king at 13, effectively under the shadow of Liu Buwei, his shrewd chancellor. Yet by 246 BCE, King Zheng assumed his crown's power fully, his leadership honed by the ruthless realism of legalism. This political philosophy promoted harsh laws and unwavering authority, stripping away mercy to carve out order. As he tightened his grip, the young king's ambitions came into sharp focus. By exploiting divisions among rival states and innovating military strategies, he expanded Qin's reach with precision and power. In 221 BCE, his vision materialized. King Zheng was reborn as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, uniting the land under one banner. With China unified, Qin Shi Huang's journey only intensified. His empire would be more than a political conquest. It was meant to be an unbreakable colossus. Sweeping reforms sculpted a centralized administration. Provinces known as commanderies were established, each governed by loyal officials. By snuffing out potential rebellions with efficiency, the emperor dismantled the redundant feudal system. This overhaul reached deep into the economic and cultural fabric of society. Standardized currency and measurements broke down regional barriers, and vast networks of roads and canals became the empire's veins. Communication blossomed under a unified script, knitting a symphony of languages into harmonious discourse. While his methods raised eyebrows, the results spoke of an empire fortified by a practical, if iron-fisted, regime. The Qin army stood as the steadfast solution to an empire forged in blood. Commanded by Qin Shi Huang from his capital in Xianyang, this military force was unparalleled, disciplined and equipped with the latest technologies. Qin generals, devoted and ingenious, employed mass production techniques that equipped their soldiers with a precision unseen in other realms. This innovation was epitomized by the Great Wall, an ambitious defense against northern nomadic incursions from groups like the Xiongnu. It stretched across rugged landscapes, a testament not only to security intentions, but to Qin's mighty resolve to protect his hard-won empire. Yet these soldiers also quelled domestic insurrections, with merciless clarity, ensuring that any murmur of dissent was drowned out by the thundering power of an unstoppable military. At the heart of Qin Shi Huang's dominion was the guiding force of legalism. One could argue that this philosophy was the emperor's lifeblood, dictating governance with unyielding rigour. The teachings of Han Feizi advocated unwavering laws and absolute power, qualities that chimed with Qin Shi Huang's vision. By removing human weaknesses from governance, he aspired to create an empire impervious to decay. Officials were monitored with extreme diligence, ensuring none could amass power that might challenge the throne. Surveillance permeated the state, crushing any seeds of rebellion at their inception. Though the punishments were severe, they moulded an environment where obedience was the norm, setting the stage for Qin Shi Huang's unassailable supremacy. No aspect of life under Qin Shi Huang was left untouched by reform. His drive for standardization extended beyond the military and economy into massive infrastructural projects. These innovations not only facilitated trade and communication, but inspired a cultural unification that would underscore the development of future Chinese civilizations. The emperor's visionary zeal even crossed into the metaphysical. He was perceived as the son of heaven, a divine mandate that legitimized his rule. Qin Shi Huang's search for immortality through alchemists and mythological elixirs blurred the line between ruler and deity. In his unyielding quest to conquer death, he launched expeditions seeking mythical substances, illustrating a man embracing the legend he was weaving, even as he sought the eternal. As we conclude this chapter, the Qin Empire's consolidation under Qin Shi Huang marks a singular epoch in earthly reigns. His achievements, a potent blend of vision, tenacity, and ruthlessness, transformed a fragmented land into a unified entity with enduring foundations. Yet amid these milestones were countless stories of hardship and human cost, sacrifices woven into the empire's very fabric. His legacy stands as a stark reminder of ambition's dual nature, an architectural grandeur born of unwavering resolve, yet overshadowed by tyranny's iron grip. Qin Shi Huang's era, where ambition outpaced mortality and mythology embraced reality, is a chapter that echoes through time, inviting us to reflect on power's eternal dance with humanity. In a time when China was a tapestry of rival states, each plotting for dominance in an era known as the Warring States period, the stage was set for an extraordinary figure's ascent. Enter Qin Shi Huang, a name synonymous with absolute power, who emerged from the minor realm of Qin with ambitions as vast as they were terrifying. His predecessors had sowed the seeds of conquest with military innovation and strategic cunning, but it was Qin Shi Huang who would wield these tools with unparalleled force to shape a fractured land into a single empire. He manoeuvred a once dismissed state into the epicenter of power, his vision unwavering against a backdrop of shifting alliances and ceaseless bloodshed. His reign marked a pivotal chapter, characterized by aggressive policies aimed at unifying the land. In the crucible of violence and obliteration, his dream took form, merging vast, divided territories into an entity now recognized as China. But this unity was wrought not from peace, but through the subjugation and sacrifice of millions. Qin Shi Huang's might stemmed not merely from inherited rule, but rather from a sophisticated war machine, one that utilized advanced weaponry, like mass-produced iron swords and crossbows. The battlefield echoed with the marching of disciplined soldiers who followed orders derived from legalist philosophies that emphasized order over ethics. This was an army where loyalty was rewarded and failure meant death, designed to conquer without mercy. The combination of fear, ambition, and ruthless efficiency transformed Qin's forces into an unstoppable tide that dismantled rival states. Off the battlefield, the emperor's ambitions stretched beyond conquest as he commanded monumental infrastructure projects at an unprecedented human cost. Roads, canals, and the Great Wall were constructed by countless labourers, toiling under harsh conditions, their efforts the backbone of an empire. Entire villages were depleted of their menfolk, pulled into serving the emperor's grandiose projects, often facing death from exhaustion or punishment. While these feats laid the groundwork for a cohesive empire, they did so on the broken backs of countless individuals, a testament to Qin Shi Huang's grand vision, shadowed by great suffering. At the heart of Qin Shi Huang's rule was legalism, a philosophy enshrining the supremacy of the state overall. With strict laws and rigid penalties, society was moulded around an unwavering framework that placed order and control above all else. Under this system, weights, measures, currency, and even the script were standardized, tightening the emperor's grip on his diverse dominion. Though often despotic, this rigid rule forged a temporary stability out of the chaos of warring factions, binding people into a single entity under a shared governance, albeit enforced through fear and surveillance. Culturally, the expansion of the Qin Empire was as transformative as it was destructive. The emperor sought not only control of the land, but also a homogenization of culture, standardizing language and customs to further consolidate power. This drive erased the distinct traditions and identities of conquered regions, casting a shadow over their unique legacies. Libraries were emptied, and art suppressed or destroyed if found incongruent with Qin ideology, the remnants reframed to fit the narrative of the emperor's superiority. Against this backdrop of conquest, Qin Shi Huang embarked on civil projects intended to heal the wounds of a fragmented land, linking its corners through networks of roads and canals. But these endeavours, remarkable in ambition, were marred by the exploitation they demanded. Labourers, both citizens and captives, faced relentless demands amidst the clamour of building, their personal sacrifices hidden beneath the empire's infrastructural achievements, bridges and roads that stitched disparate regions into a singular imperial narrative still resonant today. Despite these formidable undertakings, Qin's rigid rule fostered simmering discontent among the subjugated populations. Aristocracies toppled, and traditional orders were usurped by a meritocracy catering to imperial loyalty, stoking resentment among the displaced. Communities lived in fear, towns upended as families were separated by forced migrations and conscriptions. The cohesion achieved was superficial, masking a fractured psyche. Conquered lands bristled with latent dissent, occasionally erupting into outright rebellion, only to be swiftly crushed by the emperor's inexorable might. The struggle against Qin Shi Huang's tyranny bore seeds of subsequent discord, each act of resistance a footnote to his empire's ultimate undoing. His attempts to stifle autonomy through military and psychological tactics could silence opposition only for so long. Communities suffered punitive reprisals to dissuade insurrections, but these very measures seeded future unrest, casting shadows over his dynasty that lingered beyond its fall. Even as the Qin dynasty swiftly unravelled following Qin Shi Huang's death, his audacious quest for unity left an indelible blueprint. The vision and methods of statecraft he pioneered persisted in the cultural and political DNA of China, inspiring future dynasties to emulate his consolidation of power, albeit often avoiding his ruthless methods. The infrastructure birthed under his reign survived, ensuring Qin Shi Huang's legacy, one of stark duality. Remarkable achievement marred by a human toll, brilliance forever intertwined with tyranny. Yet, as any storyteller would remind us, within these tales of conquest lies a lesson on the paradox of power. A history littered with cautionary echoes that urge us to ponder the enduring resilience of the human spirit. In an ancient world defined by the strokes of delicate brushwork on endless scrolls of bamboo and silk, knowledge thrived in whispers of past wisdom and varnished tales of philosophy. Scholars clung to these lifelines, words from Confucius, tales from bygone dynasties, anchoring their present to countless generations before them. Their homes became sanctuaries of learning, filled with the soft rustle of turning pages and the unmistakable fragrance of ink. Yet, amid this chorus of ideas stood an emperor who envisioned a land singing a single anthem, his own. Qin Shi Huang, often seen as the ambitious unifier of China, saw in these scrolls a cacophony that threatened to drown his singular voice. To sculpt the future, he sought to master the past, setting the stage for one of history's most profound cultural shifts. In 213 BCE, beneath the sweeping eaves of his majestic palace, Qin decreed a historical cleansing unparalleled in scale. Confucian texts and the narratives of rival states faced obliteration, consigned to flames to consolidate his reign. To Qin, they weren't tomes of wisdom, they were seeds of dissent. His edict took root quickly. Imperial officials swept across the land with ruthless efficiency, turning marketplaces into arenas of pyre where the air grew thick with ash and regret. Scrolls that couldn't feed the empire's machinery, save for those on agriculture, medicine, and divination, found their fate in greedy, consuming fires. Qin regarded this as pruning the garden of thought, but the reality was more akin to uprooting the tree itself, leaving barren soil where a forest of wisdom once stood. Confucian teachings in particular felt the scorched wrath of the emperor. The values of morality and righteousness that Confucius advocated clashed violently with Qin's legalist doctrine, which praised law and order above human empathy. To Qin, Confucius was a relic, an unnecessary hindrance to his relentless march towards centralization. By obliterating these texts, he sought to eclipse society's northern star with the pallor of his decree, now the only guide through the night. Scholars, the traditional torchbearers of enlightenment, faced an impossible choice: protect the past and risk demise, or relinquish their heritage to Qin's voracious flames. Institutions of learning hushed into fearful silence, their corridors devoid of debates and vibrant discourse. Libraries once treasure troves of wisdom now echoed emptily, as the heart of intellectual inquiry struggled under the emperor's imposed ignorance. In this grim landscape where authoritarianism reigned supreme, the moral compass of an entire civilization flickered, perilously close to fading into darkness. The tyranny of Qin's edict bore a chilling image. Scholars condemned to suffocating earth, buried alive for their defiance. Accusations or mere whispers of harbouring forbidden knowledge led to severe repercussions. The truth-seekers walked on a precarious edge, caught between devotion to enlightenment and the basic instinct to survive. Spies and informants nestled into the shadows of every corner, leaving whispered conversations covert and epigrams as intricate puzzles cloaked in caution. Under such oppressive weight, even the straightforward act of inquiry became a testament to courage. The immediate desolation from these acts ran deep, carving out scars in China's cultural landscape. Repositories of history vanished, leaving behind a shallower pool of knowledge from which the empire could draw. Poetry, philosophical musings, and tales that once coloured life with richness were reduced to transient memories. Though Qin's dynasty crumbled, the loss from his imposed inferno defied easy repair. Subsequent dynasties, most notably the Han, endeavoured to stitch the nation back together, but could never fully retrieve what the book burnings had claimed. Histories and philosophies remained disparate, like scattered pieces of a puzzle, continually searching for their lost counterparts. New generations grasped for roots buried in ash and shadow, forever altered in their cultural evolution. Amidst the devastation, Qin's legalism reigned, a philosophy that prioritised state power above all. Legalism's rigid structure found in the emperor a champion who wielded it as an instrument of control, not of balance. By legitimising severe punishment and unwavering adherence to the emperor's dictates, legalism fanned the flames of intellectual repression. The book burnings illustrated the emperor's need to control thought through fear and silence, painting a stark portrait of a society moulded by one-dimensional ideology enforced through tyranny. Yet within the gloom, embers of resistance persisted. Defiant scholars concealed scrolls in hidden compartments and smuggled texts across borders, risking everything to preserve fragments of their intellectual heritage. In whispered acts of defiance, they quietly ensured that the essential truths would survive Qin's brutal reign. Behind the book burnings lay political motivations, as layered as their cultural ramifications. Qin's paranoia was a powerful force, driving him to snuff out potential rebellion by eliminating the intellectual sparks that could fan into flames of dissent. To erase and rewrite history was to craft a lasting narrative, unchecked and free from opposition, eternally burnished with his sovereign imprint. As time unfolds, these burnings remain more emblem than anecdote of Qin Shi Huang's turbulent legacy, casting long and resonant shadows. They stand as haunting reminders of knowledge's fragility under despotic rule, urging vigilance against the destructive forces that fear the bright illumination of ideas. Ultimately, while Qin's reign turned many thoughts to dust, it failed to extinguish humanity's enduring quest for enlightenment, a truth uncontained by flames. In the vast empire of Qin, fear was as thick as the air within the emperor's chambers. Qin Shi Huang, once lauded for uniting the warring states, now found himself tangled in a web of paranoia. His empire was vast, but so was his distrust. Whispers of discontent slipped through the cracks of his court, and the emperor's mind twisted them into a tapestry of treachery. It was the scholars, those sages of wisdom and tradition, who now stood under the invisible spotlight of suspicion. Within the cloistered walls of his palace, advisory tongues fueled Qin's fears. Tales of disloyalty danced around him, thick with the scent of betrayal. The scholars, once the backbone of cultural wisdom, now seemed a threat, linking the present to a past that Qin sought to control. With a swift stroke upon silk, Qin executed a brutal decree, one that would muzzle intellect and silence any dissent as permanently as his book burnings had. In Qin society, scholars were more than academics. They were custodians of China's intellectual wealth. They stood as philosophers and historians, guiding moral conduct with Confucian ideals. Their voices resonated in governance and the public sphere, a role now threatened by an emperor yearning for absolute order. In a time of rapid change, scholars found themselves at crossroads. They walked a tightrope between the preservation of tradition and the emperor's vision of strict control. Their whispered critiques created tension, a tension that did not go unnoticed. The empire was a crucible of conflicting philosophies. Confucianism, with its moral ideals, clashed with Qin's favoured legalism, which demanded strict adherence to laws over individual morality. The scholars immersed in Confucian thought challenged legalism's rigid outlook of control over humanity. In contrast, the emperor saw their resistance as antiquated, an obstacle to his new order. This philosophical rift widened, setting the stage for the emperor's drastic measures against dissent. As Qin's suspicion deepened, subtle signs hinted that all was not well. Imperial loyalty was merely a facade masking underlying tensions. Scholars behind closed doors questioned the emperor's destructive campaigns and projects that seemed to celebrate oppression over culture. Their dissent was shrouded in rhetoric and allegory, but Qin's watchful gaze pierced these veils. The stage was set for a confrontation, with words poised as swords in a battle for control. At the peak of his paranoia, Qin issued an ominous decree. Anyone who criticised his rule was to be eradicated. This command unleashed a wave of dread across the empire, marking the beginning of what historians term the Scholars' Massacre. The emperor aimed to erase opposition at its roots, obliterating scholars and their philosophies. The decree was an echo of Qin's underlying fears. That knowledge was a battlefield, and scholars were insurgents. Scholars who voiced doubts or defiance faced dire consequences, as the decree aimed to bury the pursuit of knowledge itself. Under the cover of night, the emperor's agents carried out the grim orders. Revered scholars were pulled from their quiet lives, sentenced to a death both horrific and symbolic. As they were buried alive, the cries of these silenced voices disappeared into the earth. This night marked a nadir, both a physical and ideological extermination, where ideas died along with their thinkers. The act was more than violence, it was cultural annihilation. Genius became one with clay, the last breaths of intellectual legacy mingling with soil. In the aftermath, a heavy silence fell over the scholarly community. The vibrant exchange of ideas was reduced to a murmur, echoing through the empire. Confucian teachings were suppressed, driven underground into secretive circles. Those who survived navigated an uncertain landscape, where loyalty required blind obedience and thought was considered treacherous. The Scholars' Massacre carved a deep scar across the consciousness of China. A scar that highlighted the precarious nature of freedom within despotism. Personal accounts from this epoch are scarce, yet they whisper a tale of oppression deeply felt. Surviving scrolls speak of the oppressive climate under Qin's tyrannical decree. Some chroniclers liken the severance of thought from inquiry as a cultural amputation. Stories of separation, of families and ideas alike fractured by the emperor's sweeping hand, pervade these accounts. They underscore a profound desperation, but also an enduring resilience. Ironically, Qin's attempt to solidify his reign exposed its fragility. His suppression spotlighted the brittleness of totalitarian rule. Rather than unify thought, his actions cultivated a secret reverence for the very teachings he sought to erase. Although immediate dissent was quashed, it ignited a fervour for remembrance, ensuring that the stories of the silence endured beyond their physical demise. The emperor's vision of control through brutality was ephemeral. As history realigned itself with its philosophical roots, today, the legacy of Qin Shi Huang's rule endures, casting long shadows over how authority and wisdom are perceived. The Scholars' Massacre stands as a testament to the danger of unchecked power and intolerance. It remains a poignant reminder that human intellect and courage, even when faced with devastating oppression, ultimately withstand tyranny. As we reflect on this dark chapter, we are reminded of the resilience of thought that persisted beneath the weight of authoritarian rule, offering caution and wisdom for future generations. The Great Wall of China didn't spring into existence fully formed, but evolved from a patchwork of regional defences, each one a desperate effort by warring states to fend off the persistent threat of nomadic tribes from the north. When Qin Shi Huang ascended the dragon throne, he glimpsed something grander within those fragmented fortifications. He envisioned a continuous, formidable barrier, not just to repel invaders, but as a looming declaration of the supreme power of the Qin Empire. Amidst the clamour of construction, this monumental endeavour shouted a message of control and dominance, the very essence of Qin's reign. This vision of the wall embodied Qin Shi Huang's boundless ambition and inescapable fear. Underneath the emperor's iron will, the venture demanded the collective toil of an empire. A ruler with unparalleled authority was needed to command such immense resources and a staggering labour force. Within the lines of mortar and stone, the wall became more than a physical structure. It was an emblem of imperial might and control, consolidating Qin's influence across his vast territories. The Great Wall stood as a fearful testament to an emperor whose audacity matched the very sky. But the tale of the wall shaped by Qin Shi Huang is not only one of stone, but also of the flesh and blood of the labourers who toiled relentlessly. Tens of thousands of soldiers, peasants and prisoners, they were the living cogs in the emperor's machine, thrust into an unending cycle of back-breaking labour under oppressive conditions. Forced to work with rudimentary tools, they bore the agony of sore muscles and raw hands, the biting chill of winter, and the relentless heat of the sun. Many succumbed to exhaustion, disease and malnutrition, their bones silently blending with the very foundations they forged with sweat and tears. A staggering variety of materials lay scattered across the wall's daunting expanse. Bricks and stone in some regions, packed earth in others, each section a testament to the adaptability and ingenuity of its creators. Yet despite the brutal means, the Great Wall stands unbowed and defiant, a staggering achievement of human endeavour. But as you walk its length, remember that beneath its surface, a silent cemetery sleep, filled with the untold countless who paid for this endeavour with their lives. Life upon the wall meant gruelling hours for the soldiers tasked with its defence. Found at the mercy of elements as harsh as any enemy, they lived with little more than threadbare clothing and meagre rations against biting winds or searing sun. Their existence hinged on routine patrols, always alert, ever watchful. In such isolation, a brotherhood of sorts emerged. Ties were forged in the fire of shared hardship, their shared duty becoming more than a mere profession, but a relentless test of human endurance. Throughout its serpentine path, the wall negotiated brutal desert terrain and mountainous regions, leaving neither labourers nor soldiers untouched by nature's harsh temper. Sweltering summers transformed into bitter winters, each climatic theatre imposing its own unforgiving challenges. The land was no gentle host, shifting and ephemeral, mocking humanity's attempts to tame it, from unyielding sandstorms to daunting floods. Even as cruel necessity inspired innovative construction techniques, the emotional and ecological ripple effects left a lasting scar on the very earth the wall was meant to protect. History remembers those who physically shaped the wall's majestic trajectory through the veil of legend, as seen in the tale of Meng Jiangnu. Her tragic story unfolds as her husband was taken for the wall's construction, only to perish within its shadow. Driven by grief, her tears are said to have tumbled the stones, revealing his hidden bones. Tales such as hers layer the wall with a poignant undertone, offering a voice to the many silenced by the emperor's far-reaching edicts. While serving as an emblem of Qin Shi Huang's reign of fear and control, the Great Wall bore witness to his ambition, the ultimate realization of his obsession with security and dominance. Yet, where Qin's mortal empire crumbled, his legacy lived on, etched in every stone of the wall. For those who trudged under his command, the harsh compulsion imposed by authoritarian zeal left a history only whispered among the bounds of memory. Modern archaeological efforts unveil secrets kept hidden for centuries, artifacts and skeletal remains resurfacing to tell the wall's human stories anew. These discoveries lend credence to historical narratives, capturing the tenacity and inventiveness of an era long past. They remind us that, beneath its grandeur, the Great Wall is a fabric woven with stories of perseverance amid crushing adversity. Today, millions of visitors from around the globe walk its ancient pathway, drawn to its imposing silhouette and cultural significance. The wall echoes across time, an interplay of awe and reflection, where the triumphs of human ingenuity and the tragedy of human cost coexist. It stands as both a homage to resilience and a sombre requiem for the countless lives sacrificed to bring it into being. Stretching across desolate landscapes, it defies time, bridging the past and present into a continuing saga full of paradoxes. Its stones narrate the Emperor's attempts for eternal control, whispering echoes of those who once dared carve permanence into an ever-changing world. And as long as it endures, it embodies a testament not only to Chinese history, but to the indomitable spirit pervading the essence of human aspiration. In ancient China, the very notion of death wielded a chilling authority, even over the mighty Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who had unified a nation divided by war. Conquering distant lands and commanding vast armies didn't make him immune to the spectre of mortality. For Qin Shi Huang, death was the ultimate adversary, a shadow within which his every decision simmered. It was this fear, a nagging reminder of mortality's inevitability, that fermented an unyielding personal obsession with the idea of living forever. His court became an inner sanctum of alchemists and mystics, their whispered promises of eternal life both tantalizing and troubling. Amidst the hushed corridors of the imperial palace, the clinking of vials and the strange tang of concoctions filled the air as alchemists, both genuine and fraudulent, peddled their secrets in search of favour. The emperor, gripped by the illusion of immortality, saw hope in these whispered promises. Broths brewed with exotic herbs and, more ominously, mercury, a substance notorious for its lethality, yet ironically believed to be a conduit to divinity, were prepared with fervent dedication. The court transformed into a testing ground of primitive alchemy, a theatre where the line between life-preserving elixir and deadly poison blurred ominously. Qin Shi Huang sipped his chalices filled with potent brews, oblivious to the toxins they held, in a desperate and curious turn of fate. The Emperor's ambitions also sailed beyond earthly borders, inspiring grand nautical expeditions into the shadowy unknown. Tales of enchanted lands such as Penglai promised sanctuary beyond mortality's reach. There it was believed that immortals lived in ceaseless light, untouched by the ravages of time. Entrusting the fate of this vision to an ambitious alchemist named Xu Fu, Qin sent fleets across unknown seas. The roaring waves, accompanied by the cries of seagulls, shrouded the sailors' hopes with myth and danger as they voyaged into the horizon's mysteries. It was a pursuit shaping the empire, for what man wouldn't wish to step onto immortal shores and forsake death's cold embrace? There were, however, ramifications to these fantastical pursuits that rippled through the empire, distorting priorities and resource allocation. Fields were neglected, leaving once bustling communities to languish, their sons swept away by dreams of islands unseen. Resources critical for infrastructure and military fortification were diverted into this singular quest for everlasting life, straining coffers and driving the populace into hardship through higher taxes and forced labour. This misdirected focus, albeit steeped in intrigue, threatened the stability and prosperity of Qin's domain. The emperor's own paranoia fueled this relentless chase, casting shadows over the empire and embedding terror within its very foundations. In this era of blurred boundaries between religion and magic, an intricate tapestry of belief systems prevailed, interwoven into governance itself. The spiritual climate of the period saw rulers as extensions of divine will, attempting to mirror celestial constructs on earth. Superstitions fused with religious observance to create a society where even the emperor sought divine favour in matters both great and small, believing himself to be a conduit between the heavens and his empire. Yet despite these rituals, the mysteries of life beyond death remained elusive, a cosmic joke silently punctuating the chaos of human endeavour. Within Qin Shi Huang's inner circle, allegiances were as precarious as the emperor's belief in immortality was fervent. The court, a hotbed for ambition and fear, saw advisors like Li Si navigating the dangerous terrain between supporting imperial dreams and preserving stability. Skepticism toward this obsession was perilous. Whispers of dissent often found themselves silenced by the shadow of the emperor's paranoia. The halls echoed with the soft padding of feet, the rustle of silks masking conversations fraught with double meanings and veiled threats. Here, fidelity shifted like sand, dictated by personal gain and survival rather than truth. The emperor's flight from death, driven by personal insecurity, bred isolation, as he feared not just assassins' blades, but also the unseen hand of fate. Surveillance tightened under the emperor's wary eye, rendering the court a citadel of vigilance, crawling with secrets and muted surveillance. He sought refuge in remote palaces, a man burdened by his own aspirations, as if farther distances might outpace the spectre of death. Yet, ironically, this climate of fear exacerbated the instability he feared, embedding dread into the very fabric of society. As Qin Shi Huang's tales unfold, the line demarcating myth from reality fades, painting an intricate mosaic of his pursuits. From the shores of mystical lands to chalices of hopeful poison, his quest echoes through history as an allegory of ambition, a poignant reminder of the nature of human endeavour, where aspiration dances with limitations. His empire, though mighty and replete with monumental achievements, leaves a legacy both timeless and tragic. The silent lessons of his reign emerge as whispers of caution woven into the grand narrative of human history, where the interplay of fear and hope defines the bounds of our mortal quest. Qin Shi Huang's insatiable ambition stretched far beyond his mortal reign, evident in the enormity of his final abode, a tomb crafted with dreams of eternity. From the moment he ascended to the throne, plans for this mausoleum began to take shape. It was a grandiose project, summoning a legion of artisans, craftsmen and labourers, each tasked with carving out a lasting legacy of a ruler whose reach knew no bounds. Spanning an unfathomable 56 square kilometres, this necropolis was an empire in miniature, encircled by trenches and protective walls, as elaborate as they were enigmatic. In his quest for perfection, Qin Shi Huang envisioned a burial site that rivaled even his most monumental achievements, though its completion eluded him. Delving into his tomb was like walking through an intricate tapestry of the Qin Empire, a world crafted to outshine death itself. Rivers of liquid mercury and star-studded constellations adorn the tomb, their shimmering surfaces reflecting the emperor's desire for unending life. Folklore spoke of cunning mechanisms lying in wait for any grave robbers who dared to intrude, while records hint at production methods resembling early assembly lines, foreshadowing industrial revolutions yet unseen. Yet, it was the assembly of terracotta soldiers that captured the world's imagination, where the boundaries between megalomania and creativity blurred into something hauntingly beautiful. Discovered by unsuspecting farmers in 1974, these clay warriors awoke from a 2,000-year slumber. An army of over 8,000 figures strong, each uniquely crafted with distinct faces, hairstyles and armour, they depicted a living cross-section of Qin's formidable military. In a forgotten dance between art and war, every soldier stood ready, stark in their individualism, a clay reflection of a diverse empire and its iron-fisted ruler. Initial bursts of vibrant colour, pigmented from minerals like cinnabar and azurite, have faded into muted whispers of their past glory, robbed by time and exposure, but hinting at the masterful artistry that once was. This tribute to experiential artistry bore the thumbprints of the artisans labouring under Qin's intense expectations, experts in pottery and metallurgy who pushed boundaries while fearing the emperor's unpredictable wrath. For these unnamed craftsmen, success meant survival, and failure was unthinkable. Each terracotta figure silently reflected their trials, human imprint, and endeavour immortalised in the very sinews of the clay soldiers they created. It was here that the harsh realities of their existence seeped into their work, endowing each piece with striking vitality. A whispered story of beauty born from duress. Rumours of mercury rivers snaking beneath the tomb add yet another layer to its enigmatic allure. Ancient records like Sima Qian's Records of the Grand Historian spoke of metallic waters representing the rivers and seas of China, underscoring Taoist beliefs, tying mercury to immortality, a fixation that drove the emperor throughout his life. Modern scientific tests found elevated mercury levels in the soil, adding weight to these ancient tales of flowing metallic waters, paradoxically capturing both Qin's quest for eternal life and the perilous nature of his pursuits. The irony is palpable, painting a chilling image of a tomb, as much a sanctuary as a toxin-laden testament to mortal hubris. The tomb itself, with its sophisticated architecture believed to contain traps and defences, speaks volumes of an era thriving on innovation. Ingenious contraptions designed to fend off intruders, crossbows set to fire upon disturbance, hint at a technological prowess that seems impossibly advanced. Although the full extent of these features remain shrouded within the unopened burial chamber, they suggest a society bent on ingenuity, perhaps rivaling any wonders of their time. It was a culture of both creation and paranoia, mirroring a ruler whose legacy sought preservation through any means necessary. Symbolically representing the Qin Empire, the mausoleum served as a meticulous retelling of the emperor's dominion. From clay acrobats to bureaucrats, every facet was crafted to replicate the society he held under his grasp. This subterranean realm, complete with terracotta infantry standing in military formation, wood chariots and stone armaments, highlighted the emperor's preoccupation with power, order and hierarchy. A tangible reflection of state affairs brought to the afterlife's doorstep. Yet within this grandeur lay a grand illusion. Qin Shi Huang intended for his tomb to defy mortality, to embody power everlasting. The very materials meant to immortalise his reign, chargeable mercury, fragile pottery, are emblematic of life's transience and the futility of power beyond the grave. As time erodes even the mightiest monuments, the emperor's aspirations stand revealed in stark relief. A legacy ensnared by its own decadence, with an empire ultimately sowing seeds of its rapid decline. For now the tomb remains sealed, protected by ethical and technical considerations that mirror the emperor's own barriers to encroachments. The site transcends its role as mere burial ground, casting reflections on ancient China's philosophy and spirituality. A cosmic microcosm, the tomb narrates an abstract but tangible story, an age-old struggle against mortality. Encased in mystery, it invites modern onlookers to ponder ambition's far reach, echoing lessons of human aspiration intertwining with inevitable decline. In Qin Shi Huang's enduring story, we find history's relentless reminder. Even the grandest illusions ultimately bow to the ceaseless march of time. In the shadow of the dragon throne, a chilling, watchful eye loomed over ancient China, born from the depths of Qin Shi Huang's unrelenting paranoia. Besieged by fears of betrayal, both from foreign invaders and within his own ranks, the emperor's anxiety was not just idle worry, it became a cornerstone of policy that turned whispers into weapons. Living in such times meant that even a careless word could spiral into a death sentence. Qin Shi Huang's trust was scarcer than gold, and its absence was filled with suspicion, spreading like a fog that covered the entire nation. Haunted by real and imagined plots, the emperor constructed a vast network of surveillance, reaching far beyond the castle's fortified walls. This network slithered through every facet of society, embedding itself into the lives of courtesans, magistrates and peasants alike. No corner of the empire was free from its suffocating grip. The emperor's spies were adept at eavesdropping on every household, their senses finely honed to detect even the subtlest discord from unyielding loyalty. Sandwiched between vigilance and paranoia, this ominous web fostered a land where trust dwindled and silence roared with unspoken fears. To tighten his grip on power, Qin Shi Huang established an elite corps of secret police, trained to blend into the shadows. No longer just a military arm for warfare, these agents served as the emperor's clandestine enforcers, wielding psychological warfare to maintain his rule. Their ghostly presence instilled a culture of doubt, making citizens wary of their closest relationships and spreading misinformation to ensure compliance. Each quadrant of society quivered under this blanket of fear, unleashing the dark arts of espionage to reinforce the emperor's unyielding command. Operating under invisibility cloaks, the secret police executed their mission with chilling precision. More than just eyes and ears, they mastered deceit with an arsenal that included disguises and coded messages. Taverns and markets thrived with more than just conventional gossip. They became dangerous grounds where a stray comment could seal one's doom. With every whisper and nod, perceptions were manipulated to ensure that Qin Shi Huang's power seemed never-ending and indestructible. This skillful spin meant the populace dared not question where true loyalties lay, bolstering the emperor's omnipresent authority. Within the intimidations of the Qin court, loyalty existed on a knife's edge. Devotion to the emperor was measured by strict compliance, and calls for unswerving allegiance muted any dissent. Deviations were punishable by death, often in brutal public displays, as grim reminders of the peril in defying the sovereign. Paradoxically, the relentless pursuit of loyalty fed an undercurrent of betrayal. Secret alliances blossomed in the shadows, backlit by whispers of disbelief. These machinations presented a constant threat, pulling and fraying at the strings of control that Qin Shi Huang desperately clutched. At the heart of the emperor's surveillance state were the informants, individuals embedded in every echelon of society. Serving as both enforcers and pawns, they filled the emperor's insatiable appetite for information with their clandestine reports. For some, becoming an informant was survival. For others, it promised social advancement or a chance to even old scores. Conversations within communities became encrypted narratives, potential minefields where words could be flipped and turned lethal, creating a realm where secrecy reigned supreme. The dread engendered by this surveillance seeped into the everyday lives of the Qin people. Social interactions devolved into exercises of restraint, with words metered and allegiances doubted, even among kin. Markets hummed with more than just barter, while creativity and dissent, once fertile in the arts, shriveled under the glare of compulsory conformity. Daily existence was overshadowed by the fear of denunciation. Relationships frayed as society reconfigured itself to survive in constant vigilance. Yet, in this oppressive landscape, human ingenuity found cracks in the emperor's iron veil. With a finesse that balanced survival and defiance, subjects learned the art of coded language, layering conversations with riddles and metaphors to obfuscate their true intent. Subversive groups and secret societies, defiant fingerprints against tyranny, schemed and shared resistance strategies. These clandestine circles pulsed beneath the surface, sowing the seeds of future revolt and gradually crumbling the foundation of Qin Shi Huang's seemingly endless power. Ironically, the emperor's meticulous espionage machine was not foolproof. Its inevitable complexities made it susceptible to manipulation, with informants pursuing personal vendettas and fabricating threats. Data congestion led to misjudgments that could ignite overreactions against false enemies. The intended stranglehold over his empire unwittingly became a double-edged sword, planting dissension that eventually unravelled the delicate balance of terror that held Qin Shi Huang's domains in its thrall. The ghost of Qin Shi Huang's legacy extended well into the annals of time, his obsession with control leaving an imprint that subsequent rulers studied diligently. His tale served as cautionary wisdom, echoing through centuries with lessons on the destructive potential of unchecked power. The echoes of his reign reverberate in stories and allegories that remind us of humanity's enduring quest for balance between authority and freedom. His story remains a somber testament to the enduring human spirit, shining a light on resilience in the face of overwhelming tyranny. In the shadow of the Dragon Throne, a chilling, watchful eye loomed over ancient China, born from the depths of Qin Shi Huang's unrelenting paranoia. Besieged by fears of betrayal, both from foreign invaders and within his own ranks, the emperor's anxiety was not just idle worry. It became a cornerstone of policy that turned whispers into weapons. Living in such times meant that even a careless word could spiral into a death sentence. Qin Shi Huang's trust was scarcer than gold, and its absence was filled with suspicion, spreading like a fog that covered the entire nation. During the twilight of his reign, the imposing Qin Shi Huang embarked on a grand tour of his sprawling empire, intending to cement his legacy as a ubiquitous presence throughout the lands. Yet behind this display of might, hushed whispers crept alongside the emperor's caravan. Word of his declining health began to circulate, despite rigorous attempts to preserve the illusion of his peerless vigour. His relentless obsession with immortality, which had led him to ingest arcane elixirs, seemed to be accelerating his demise rather than prolonging his life. Ironically, it was this very pursuit that might have made him more mortal than any foe could. The secret blend of mercury-laden potions he consumed wasn't the life-giving nectar he envisioned, but rather the poison that ravaged his once indomitable vitality. As the procession meandered through the lush valleys and over rugged mountains, the emperor's condition became a haunting contrast to the thriving empire he had once built with an iron fist. Aware of another menace lurking around the corner, political chaos, the emperor's inner circle moved swiftly to guard this secret of his fading strength. The ministers, with their dormant fear of anarchy, worked relentlessly to conceal his death from the eyes and ears of a watchful empire. The idea of warlords tearing the nascent unity apart in the face of their emperor's demise forced them to absurd but necessary lengths. As rigor mortis subtly set in on the imperial figure during their journey, they devised a practical, if macabre, solution: a wagon load of putrid fish, meant to mask the scent of decay clinging to Qin Shi Huang's lifeless form. The emperor, who once inspired both awe and terror, was now a quiet passenger, testament to the transience of power. While the summer sun bore down relentlessly on the procession, this unsavoury disguise served as a reminder of the earthbound fate awaiting even the greatest among men. The news of Qin Shi Huang's departure was a silent storm threatening the brittle peace. Whispered secrets of his death, though held close within the inner circle, risked sending an empire built on force tumbling into chaos. Ministers feared the delicate equilibrium maintaining their power would shatter, cascading into anarchy. In court, where whispers held as much weight as proclamations, schemes unfolded. Leaders played chess with real lives, seeking to maneuver themselves into favourable positions before the truth emerged. In this game, Li Si, the cunning prime minister, and Zhao Gao, the shrewd eunuch, manoeuvred with deft hands, shaping a shifting destiny for the empire. In a cruel twist of fate, the question of succession arrived with looming certainty. The logical heir, Fu Su, had been a stalwart by his father's side, marked by a potential for compassion and reform impossible under his father's constrictive regime. Yet, his potential ascension was stifled by Zhao Gao's sinister games. Fu Su, cast into isolation, received malicious counsels, masked as imperial decrees, tricked into a tragic exit through suicide under false pretenses of paternal edicts. His death illuminated the treacherous machinations at play within the palace, a powerful commentary on loyalty warped by ambition. Without Fu Su, the seat of power shifted to Hu Hai, another of Qin Shi Huang's sons, notably more pliant and less experienced. Hoisted into the emperor's garb as nothing more than a puppet, Hu Hai played his part while others penned the script. Zhao Gao emerged as the puppeteer, pulling the strings of the throne's marionette. The empire saw a sovereign seated precariously on an edifice of deceit, a testament to the volatile hold Zhao Gao wielded over the emperor and the state. Eventually, the entourage returned to capital territory, clandestine in their sorrowful cargo. Beneath the earth of Xi'an, within a tomb grand enough to house a conqueror's dreams, Qin Shi Huang found his eternal rest. A sprawling mausoleum painted with the emperor's vision, protected by terracotta sentinels, as willing to serve in death as they were in life. Yet these lifeless forms guarded an irony stark in its clarity. the futility inherent in the emperor's quest for deathless dominion. Despite the internal rot of ambition and betrayal, the ripples of Qin Shi Huang's rule spread even as whispers of rebellion began to hum across the fertile expanse of his empire. With the emperor's departure and his fabricated successor enthroned, dissent bubbled forth, calling upon the unrest born from years of exploitation and iron-fisted governance. Discontent blossomed into rebellion, and once quashed voices harnessed a myriad of grievances for an uprising, painted not just in humanity's thirst for autonomy, but in harsh hues of vengeance. The emperor, in overcoming rival kings, crafted a brittle peace, yet in his end, he left behind the seeds of unrest. Qin Shi Huang's era, a testament to both awesome ambition and ruthless sacrifice, echoes eternally into China's history. His ambitions unified a kingdom, yet it was accomplished at an incredible human price, a cautionary tale in the dangers of unchecked power. The emperor's life and death ultimately sketch a narrative rife with paradox, where a monumental legacy is also a history brimming with unspeakable cost and sovereign folly. Humankind, even behind the veils of greatness, is forever asked to reconcile the grandeur of ambition with life's unyielding impermanence. And thus, even the first emperor of China, seeking eternity, is immortalized by time's impartial hand, teaching each subsequent generation about the transient nature of power. In the shadow of Qin Shi Huang's demise, his grandiose empire crumbled with alarming swiftness. This rapid collapse, merely a few years post his death, serves as a haunting reminder of the unsustainable nature of a reign built on terror and oppression. Qin's iron-fisted rule, characterized by brutal laws and immense fear, left the empire trembling in his absence, much like a collapsing house of cards. His passing unshackled long-repressed resentments, allowing rebellions to spread unchecked. The uprising that followed seemed almost inevitable, with Liu Bang, a mere former peasant, rising from the chaos to establish the dawn of the Han dynasty. It was as if the very guards that had kept Qin's world in check were swept away by the people's pent-up defiance. The legacy Qin left behind has always been etched into China's historical landscape, much like the Great Wall he built. His name calls forth both awe for his industrial audacity and shivers for his draconian measures. While many rulers who came after him detested his ruthless approach, they were often forced to acknowledge the structural reforms he pioneered. His penchant for standardization, be it in law, writing or measurements, paved the way for cohesive societal frameworks that outlived the violent demise of his dynasty. Judgments about Qin vary vastly. To some he stands as the epitome of a despotic ruler, a stark warning carved into history about the dangers of unwavering centralized power. To others, he's seen as a foundational figure in China's narrative, whose monumental achievements, despite their bloody costs, set a sturdy groundwork for future progress. And then there was the shadow he cast over Chinese history, a spectre that loomed long and dark across the centuries. The delicate dance of power, as seen with the Han rulers, pivoted between imitating Qin's methods and detesting them, as they sought to blend his strict legalism with the gentler tenets of Confucianism. This difficult balancing act between authority and compassion became a kind of recurring motif in the tapestry of Chinese imperial rule. Even the mighty Ming and Qing dynasties felt Qin's looming presence, attempting to reconcile the ever-tempting allure of absolute control with the inescapable need for underlying goodwill. Yet, for all these lessons, history, in its cyclical folly, witnessed many repeating Qin's errors. The intoxicating lure of power, paired with the fear of its potential loss, often blinded many rulers across different epochs to the wisdom the Qin legacy offered. In attempting expansive control, they stumbled into similar pitfalls of oppression and subsequent rebellion that entangled Qin's later days. His legacy echoes far beyond China's borders, resonating with totalitarian regimes that later grasped for power with similar heavy hands. The chilling lessons from Qin's reign are eerily current in the narratives of modern authoritarianism, underscoring humanity's persistent struggle against despotic ambition. Qin Shi Huang's influence, undeniable and far-reaching, has inspired generations of storytellers. Artists painted him both as a tyrant and a visionary, juxtaposing his dark tyranny with his undeniable accomplishments. His life, a tapestry of contradictions, has served as a rich reservoir for reflections on power and its inherent pitfalls. With contemporary reinterpretations in film and literature, his story has been continually revisited, offering fresh insights and sparking debates on the enduring complexities of leadership. The veil of time has not dimmed the fascination or caution his legacy commands. The archaeological sites linked to Qin Shi Huang, especially considering the grandeur of his mausoleum and the enigmatic terracotta army standing vigilantly, provide tangible links to his bygone era. Such discoveries paint a vivid picture of the splendour and collateral cost of his reign. Each unearthed relic tells stories of the emperor's grandeur and the lives caught in the gears of his relentless machine. The nuanced craftsmanship discovered hints at the ambition that underscored his rule, interweaving new pieces into the complex puzzle of his legacy. These silent witnesses ensure that the echo of his power continues to stir both intrigue and inquiry in contemporary scholarship. State propaganda historically has been adept at crafting narratives around figures like Qin Shi Huang to serve current agendas. His legacy, often polished, sometimes tarnished, has been wielded to reinforce themes of unity and strength, drawing parallels between his dream of a unified China and contemporary political imperatives. The dichotomy of his image, a proud unifier but ruthless tyrant, reflects the intricate dance between myth and memory, deployed strategically across history to uphold or challenge ideologies. Legalism, the philosophical backbone of Qin's governance, left a significant imprint on China's administrative evolution. While its stern codes became synonymous with Qin's excesses, they nonetheless provided a structural spine for governance and control. This stark ideology, when nuanced with Confucian compassion in later eras, helped craft a more balanced approach to statecraft, ensuring Qin's ideological afterlife in the corridors of Chinese bureaucracy. His era's lessons on governing, intertwining order and empathy, linger on, shaping governance dialogues even today. Qin Shi Huang's reign, both daunting and enlightening, stands as an unfaded testament to the intricate dance of power's dual nature. This narrative thread, with its poignant meditations on mortality and ambition, offers reflections that stretch out to our present world, urging contemplation on governance and the timeless human pursuit of legacy. His story, complex and thrilling, has become a parable for governance and leadership, uncovering truths about humanity's enduring struggles. If this tale stirs your curiosity or adds to any late-night pondering, feel warmly welcomed to join our ongoing journey by liking, subscribing, and venturing deeper into history's captivating myths.